Today I have the great pleasure of being with Katie Rudland. She is an intuitive energy coach and healer. I really love that title, Katie. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We're in such a beautiful nature setting. I mean,
yeah, it's so nice.
Yes, it's very you.
Yeah.
And today I think we're going to just get to know all this beautiful work that you do. And maybe you can tell us a little bit, what does all this, your title, what does it entail? What is the work that you do?
Okay, so I guess where I can start is with the name Bespoke Journey, and how it kind of came about was that I have been sharing and telling my own personal journey for a while now, and my own experiences and things that I'm working through, and I write a lot.
Yes.
So I tend to share a lot of my story, basically, and so it's kind of my bespoke journey. Obviously, it's tailored to me, and then the idea of Bespoke Journey is that I then help guide and teach others on their bespoke journey.
Yes, I love that. And actually, your webpage is bespokejourney.com, right? Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so you do a lot of things, because that's something I love about you. Like, you know so much, and you use all these tools, right, to encompass it in the work that you do. Now, I know you have a class coming up that you're very fond of, and it's really wonderful. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the course that I'm working on is something I've wanted to do for a while, and I couldn't quite see it, you know. I was waiting for this clarity. I knew I wanted to do it, but I just couldn't kind of get to the point where it was like, this is it, you know? And then over these last few weeks, it's just kind of, I don't know, just all come in, you know? And it was just like, I know all of it. I see it. I know how it's going to look, how it's going to feel. And yeah, and so then I'm starting to now do a lot of work with it and bringing in a lot of people that have been part of my journey.
Wow.
So kind of co-creating. And the idea of Bespoke Journey was always to have it as like a hub, like an umbrella, you know, for lots of different modalities and healing methods and teachings. And so I just thought how nice to then bring in people that have been part of my journey to then offer their services to.
Yes.
So it's kind of like a little online hub community building, and this course is a self-help healing course. So yeah, it's a 7-week course, running along lots of different modalities and healing methods to kind of put in your toolbox that you can use on yourself to take you on that journey of kind of starting to awaken and starting to become aware and come into awareness and begin your path. And the idea of it is, I love to like birth things, you know, and start new things and not put them, but kind of guide them to their paths, you know. So the idea of this course is that it creates lots of gateways for people to go down, say, certain ways, and then there's someone that can lead them down that path in that area that they feel drawn to.
Okay, exactly, because you will have then different therapists also working with you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. What types of disciplines you're going to have, techniques?
Yeah. So there's going to be movement, yoga on there. There's going to be a breath work.
Wow, nice.
I'm going to be doing all the storytelling.
Yes.
And working with affirmations and some hypnosis stuff as well.
Wow.
And then there's going to be sound on there too. I've got a friend coming in talking about boundaries and the importance of boundaries.
Wonderful.
And working with crystals, aromatherapy oils. I've also got the friend I'm also co-creating it with is bringing in lots of information on gut health and the gut and mind, working with the microbiome. So it's kind of looking at all angles. The idea of it is that it's for all, on all levels, like mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual.
Definitely.
So
Wow.
working with the breath, working with movement, with sound, with all of these things that are really available to us. It's just learning how to use them, So
Yes. Oh, that's so good. That's amazing. And so this course, you would find it, I guess, in bespokenjourney.com, right?
.co.uk.
Sorry, thank you. .co.uk.
Yeah.
Perfect. Exactly. So it's a 7-week course.
Yeah, the idea of it is it's because I'm doing it a bit like a story, because the idea of it is I want to make it playful. I want to make it creative and fun, and sort of an educational, fun way for adults to learn about this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So the idea is it's based on chapters. So like writing your story, becoming the author of your book, your life, creating your life, but working internally.
Okay.
So everything is about the inner journey, the inner navigation system. So working on, when we've been so programmed, I believe, to look at the external, we want more money, but it's like, well, what's that feeling that you get from the money?
Yes.
And then how can you create that feeling within?
Wow. Yes.
So it's really looking at kind of getting to the root of what this is and working within ourselves and looking at, like for home, for example, like building your internal home, setting the foundations and then building from that.
Yes.
And so that's the kind of idea behind it. So I've set it up sort of like chapters. So the idea is, it's kind of like writing your own story and creating your life how you want it to be. And then working with the energy to create that within, to then bring it into you from the outside,
Wow.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Wow. It sounds amazing and it sounds so complete. And the fact that by what you're saying, I'm getting that, okay, so you come into the class and you have an intention of what you want your life to be or how you want to change your life. And you just take us on that journey to create it, basically, and to know that it is possible.
Completely.
Right?
Yeah, completely. And I think, people can see my journey and how it's gone for me, So I'm showing and living that, breathing it, So it is possible, but it's just having the tools and the education.
Of course.
To be able to know, and what's right for you, rather than this one fits all, It's like learning about us as individuals and what works for us.
Of course, and adapting it to each one. Because there's a phrase that you say that I love, is that all your dreams have come true, and you're living proof of that. Can you tell us a little bit about which have been those dreams and how are you living the dream?
Yeah, so I think throughout my life, I've kind of, I guess, been really aware of how a lot of the things I say then happen. And I guess...
Only say or also think, sorry?
Both. Yeah, both. So, for example, last year, So there was quite a few things I wanted to do when I was younger and I hadn't done them. So one of them was to live in London.
Okay.
So last year I'd moved back in with my dad during lockdown and I was in London visiting a friend, and there was this place in London that I could go and look at, and I was like, I'll just go and have a look at it. And at the time I was like going through my transition of work and everything. So I was a bit tight on money, and I went and saw this place and I was like, it's perfect, it's really nice, in North London, in Archway.
Okay.
And then I kind of got told it was, £850, which in London at that price, it's cheap. But I was like, I don't know, like it's still a lot of money right now, and was going through all this. And then I was in my room and I was crying and I was just like, help, like, please, should I go? Should I not go? Like, what should I do? And just in this like complete surrender mode.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden my phone lit up. and the lady messaged me and just said, look, I've had a few other people, but I really connected with you and liked your energy. And so how would you feel if we split the rent and I do it for $450? And it was just like, what?
Perfect.
And this place for $450 in London,
incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's just one example. And then when I was in London, lived there for the summer, and yeah, it was amazing. I was just seeing signs. So for me, signs and everything, everywhere, all the time.
Yes.
And
yes.
I just kept seeing signs for France and Paris.
Wow.
And I was really working through love at that time, loving myself, just self-love. I'm deeply rooted in that being such an important role, And yeah, I was just seeing Paris, France. And I was like, I think I'm going to go to France and fall in love, right?
Yes.
Little did I know it was the love for myself at this stage.
The most important one.
Exactly. Longest relationship we ever have.
Most definitely.
So I was getting all these signs, and I was with my friend back in Suffolk, where I'm from. We were sat on the beach, and I was just like, this is what I want. I really want to just be somewhere warm, by a beach, So that evening, I went back to London. I went on this same website where I found the place in London.
Okay.
Scrolled, the first thing that came up, a place in the south of France. So I messaged the guy, and then, a few weeks later, I was driving over to France.
Wow.
Yeah. And obviously now I'm here in Spain, and how my journey's been since has just excelled.
Right? That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that's incredible, Katie. And it's so beautiful that you're so aware of the signs that are guiding you, and that, okay, you have an intention, you have something where you want to go, or something that you want, and then it manifests. That is true power. And that power, everybody has that power. And I love that you promote that work, that you empower people to realize that and to do it, especially with the course that you're going to do. I would love to talk about signs and how to listen to them. Because so many times we're like, give me a sign, please, I need something. And then we get the signs and we don't listen.
Yeah.
Or we don't want to see. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, signs have always been really powerful for me. And I think, again, I think a lot of it is connecting to ourselves in here, as well. I think because we can get all the signs, right? But if we don't listen or connect here, we have them in here as well. Our body is our guide. It tells us everything.
Yes.
We have everything in here. So, I think sometimes it's just about connecting inside to that space too.
Of course.
And kind of listening to that. But that in itself takes a lot of practice and a lot of work, ultimately. And I think sometimes that's a lot of the time what stops us from doing it, because we have to kind of stop and start, slowing and listening and listening to the inner voice, the inner wisdom that we already have in here.
Exactly, it's already here.
Yeah. But they will provide, the universe will provide the signs, that, the other day I was rushing around, and outside it was also raining as well, so I was feeling quite the emotions, of nature, and there was loads of snails outside, and I was like, I know this is a sign to just slow.
Yes.
Wow. And just, every day, when I go on walks, I kind of play a little game sometimes.
Okay.
Just a bit okay, what do you want me to see? And just play. And then,
that's beautiful. Of course.
Because it's just awareness, you do it. So when you're with children, it's okay, let's see if we can find a red flower. And then all of a sudden, you see one, right?
Yes.
But you might not have seen that had you not have brought your focus and awareness. So a lot of it, I think, comes down to where are we placing our focus,
Of course.
you know?
Yes.
And we can also create those signs. So it's like, you know, if you focus enough on wanting to see a red car or a red rose or a red, you know, eventually you're going to see it because your focus is there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's also about where are we placing our focus. And I think that plays a really important role.
Most definitely, because just by focusing on something, then we're focusing our energy there, right?
And it all comes back to energy.
And it all comes back to energy, exactly. Exactly, right? And I think that's a big part of why we've created We Are Infinite. We say we're the creators of our own lives.
Completely.
Because it all comes down to energy. We're all energy. So if we vibrate in a certain frequency, we're going to attract what that frequency...
Completely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's like the radio frequency. It's like what we give out, you know, what's coming out. Where's our frequency at? And what do we see? And how are we seeing that? Because that can come from our perceptions too of how we've been brought up to believe certain ways and behaviours and patterns.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, like, I think it's just really about kind of taking off the layers and just really getting to the roots and to just the core essence of like who we are, and beyond everything, you know, we are love.
We are love.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like underneath all of that, there is love, like pure divine love there. And so, yeah, it's just as we go about our lives, we, you know, load ourselves up with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
So it's kind of, a lot of it, I think, is taking a lot of that off, actually, and just getting to that root, you know? Yeah, so I think a lot of the one-to-one work that I do is, yeah, really more, just more really in depth about that kind of getting to that root, you know, on all levels, and just really working with that. And
most definitely.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. That's great. It's great to have people like you promoting this work. I think it's really complete, really beautiful, and that's just how humans need to be, right? They need to be connected to this type of work, and I feel that reality as it is presented just deviates a lot from it, and it's good. It's great to have people who bring awareness to all this.
Yeah, and I think also it's just kind of bringing ourselves to simplicity again and kind of the basics, you know? I think this is really key. It's just, yeah, because we have it all, you know? We have our breath, we have nature, we have all of this. And I think it's just learning how to use it in a healthy way. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
And I feel like for me as well, I mentioned to you before when we were chatting about my dreams.
Yes.
And yeah, speaking of signs, I've always, from a really young age, had really vivid dreams.
Wow.
And then I just kind of trained myself as a child, teenager, to start writing them down. I've always journaled. It's been such a healing part of my journey, journaling.
Yes.
And which is why I now write and share. Because like I say, I love to write, I love to storytell, I love to share. And my dreams, the more and more I have, like anything, the more we train, the stronger the muscle becomes, right? So it's like the energy, the more you train the energy. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm so kind of trained to just note down my dreams, whatever they are.
Yes.
And I channel so much in my dreams. Wow. And I get dates come through, and I don't necessarily get told what's going to happen on these dates or anything, you know, but I just get told dates and I put them in my calendar and kind of forget about them, to be honest. I don't attach myself to them, but then, you know, something really big happens either sometimes with me personally or like globally as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were telling me some big ones.
Yeah.
That.
So, yeah, so they've always been my space for like guidance. So I feel I'm kind of on a bridge between two worlds, you know. I feel I'm very much grounded in this reality, but also continuing to work with spirit.
Okay.
And strengthening both, you know, and working with both because, yeah, I mean, I get so much stuff come through. It's, you know, it's there and happening for a reason. So just learning to work with that, and yeah, I mean, it's magical.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's so beautiful. And do you encourage that people try to have also a balance between those two worlds?
Yeah, and I think it just completely depends on your path, you know? And I think that's the magic of it all, is that each single one of us has a different one.
Yes.
And even if there was two of us exactly the same, we'd still experience it differently. And I think that's the beauty of it all, you know? And every single person you meet has a lesson, a story, something to share. And I just think it's beautiful, you know?
I love that you use so many disciplines and techniques and tools. And I know a big part of your work is also the one of human design and astrology. Ooh, can you tell us some about that?
Yeah, so human design first came into my life when I was 28 and I was going through my Saturn return. And astrology, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I've always been into like magic and I like looking at horoscopes and Mystic Meg and, you know, all of these kind of things. And I think this is really key, actually, in a big part of our journeys, is to look at how we were as children and really look at what we done for joy and what brought us joy and what we love doing, because it plays a big part in our adult life. But yeah, so I was always loved all this stuff and always just been really into like self-development, and then I kind of had my first human design reading and it just really kind of switched something with me, you know. It was a really big pivotal point for me, and I guess a few years leading up to that I'd really started kind of looking into on so many levels like self-development, you know. I was in an unhealthy relationship that now, you know, I also created that. It was the energy I was in and everything else. It was a big catapult into my awakening, you know, and kind of healing journey too. And I think, we can see relationships as, you know, toxic or, you know, I don't condone any bad behavior, but I also think it brings such blessings when you're able to see it in that light.
Definitely. That everything happens perfectly and
completely, because it really kickstarted me into looking at relationships, you know. And it was like I was at that point I was still focused on the external and looking at others more so than myself, you know. And then that's kind of what started me working on the relationship with me.
Yes.
And then human design came in, and then it was like, oh, okay, so I can work with this design that's unique to me, that actually kind of teaches and guides me as a tool in how I kind of navigate. So I started kind of working with that, and as it's progressed, I've had quite a few readings, and then the teacher has then been teaching me, because I was like, I really want to use this with my clients, you know, on one-to-one sessions, because it's so unique to them, and getting them to understand themselves, you know. I think understanding their ways and how they navigate. So using that with astrology I just feel they're such powerful tools to use. And, you know, with astrology and human design together, I think it's a really beautiful way to work with someone. And, you know, with the astrology, it's so old, you know, astrology has been around forever.
Yes, basically.
Yeah, and, you know, I've always been, drawn to the planets and the moons and everything. And, I think you can work a lot with your, like, north and south node, like looking at your karma and what you're going towards, you know, going towards the North Star.
Yes.
And again, with the energy, it's like, where are we going towards? You know, where are we putting our focus? Where do we want to go towards? And
Definitely.
kind of working with that. And so, it's a really nice kind of combination to work with a mixture of things. I feel like, I have this like multi-toolbox and depending on where the person's at, I can kind of pull from these toolbox and sort of guide them into where they want to go, really, and what they want to work with, and kind of put them on their path, you know? And I'm really just aware of how I can trigger people's healing and journeys and awakenings, and a big part of that is, I think, like transformation, you know?
Definitely.
I feel I help people a lot through transitional periods in life, like grief and trauma, and kind of when they're going through the Saturn return in astrology.
Yes.
Also when they go through their Uranus opposition, like when there's big kind of transitional phases in people's lives.
Yes.
They're the kind of people I'm always working with, you know? And I feel myself, I go through death and rebirth every day, it feels, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. So I feel I really work with that kind of process of like death and rebirth, you know, and that doesn't mean the physical death, obviously, it just means, you know, working with all kind of themes of death, you know, on an energetic level, physical, mental, spiritual, like the shedding, you know? So I just feel it's a really powerful tool to help guide people again. And I love it, you know, like it's one of those things where I'm so passionate about, you know.
Wonderful.
I think when you're just naturally talking about it, and it's one of those things that just flows with you so naturally. And I love to learn, you know, and to me learning is fun. I love it. So I feel I'm also this forever kind of student teacher, you know, always learning and teaching and learning and teaching, and I love that, and I love that's a big part of my life and what I do, because it's fun and joyful, you know.
But that's amazing, and I love the work that you do, and I love that you get to do it, you know, one-on-one coaching sessions with your clients, and also creating these types of courses that are just, I think, fundamental for people. And it's beautiful that you just help them in that, go through that transformation. And I love that you say that you help birth things and people, like maybe, well, I guess that's what you feel that is part of your role while you're here.
Definitely. And then I love that I on a physical level, you know, I've been doing massage for a really long time, and reflexology and Reiki I trained, and so I love that I can work with the body too, because I love that kind of somatic experience of working with the body and moving energy in that way too.
Wow.
So I love the mixture of it all, you know. Like I said, on all levels it feels like mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, like
encompassing it all, of course. Exactly, that a person is all that. So, wow. Yeah. So powerful.
Yeah.
Now, Katie, I would love to go more into depth with respect to your journey. And I'm just curious, has there been like a big catalyst or anything that has just made you start to go on this path and maybe changed your life to do the work that you do now?
Yeah, so when I was 12, my mum got ill, and this was a really pivotal point because I remember I was journaling all the time, and I remember kind of praying at this point to God or to whoever, you know, like, please save my mom, you know, she's not well. And unfortunately, she passed away when I was 13. And this, for me, was huge, you know, because it was all of a sudden the balance had gone, you know, the mother, the father, you know, it was such a prominent age for me, like being 13, like just kind of transitioning, like from kind of child to kind of teenager. Literally it wasn't very long after I had my first period.
Wow.
So I was then transitioning into kind of womanhood, you know, and I think this was also the catalyst for that.
Yes.
Without a mom, you know, and like without the woman support, right?
Yes.
And so I also had lost both like nanas when I was younger as well. So yeah, all of a sudden it was like I didn't have like women, you know, this like women kind of connection. And then obviously grew up with my dad and brother, so two men, you know, like masculine. And I've always been really good with meeting people, like having like really good friendships, you know. To me, it's that like soul family with friends, you know, like, and that's been really, really powerful for me. But I think that's really what started off a lot of my writing.
Okay.
And a lot of my journey, really, because it's something that I didn't want to deal with at the time, you know, so young, and kind of found my own way. I was quite stubborn. But it was almost like I knew at the same time, like, to write, you know?
Okay.
And I just used to write all the time. And my cousin, who's 2 weeks younger than me, she lived in Kent, and we just used to write to each other, and we'd write everything, you know. And then a really good friend of mine at school, we had this notepad, and we'd just write to each other and pass it across, you know, and just made me, like, writing was just so healing for me. And then I kind of went down the road of kind of society, really, you know, just drinking and kind of not facing things, but having fun, you know, learning, trial and error, just being that age. And and then I guess another big thing that happened was I went on a big like traveling trip.
Yes.
In 2013, and I spent 8 months traveling around the world, and that was a really big thing for me. You know, I've always loved travel, and I've always felt really at home in a foreign country to me, you know, not in England. Like and it's really excelled kind of my journey when I've been in foreign countries. So this trip was just amazing, and it was very much a kind of, I initially went and met with a friend, and then after a little while we kind of went our own ways. And when I did that, that's when just everything started happening, you know, because I was then not on my own, you know, and it was just like, okay, like, I just have to just trust, you know. I had no plan. It was just like, let's just see where the road takes me. And it was this magical experience journey, and I've met so many friends from so many places now, you know, and really good friends that we've stayed in contact with. And that really got me looking at the world, different cultures, and just different ways of life, and just kind of that real humble, you know, being in places like in Asia, and just seeing these kids like so happy with nothing, you know, they're just so happy. And I always said to myself, one day I'm going to do another trip, but I'm going to really give back. Because for me, that was like I was experiencing traveling, I was having fun, and learning so much. But I was just like, I really want to give back, to these people that everywhere we were going, they were so helpful and so kind.
Wow.
And it was just a really humbling experience, And I think travel does that. When you go to these places and, you don't know anyone, yet there's people and they're just so kind and willing to help you. And it's just so beautiful.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, and
True
just
kindness.
Trusting, and just trusting that. And so that was really, really big for me. And then, kind of from that kind of got into a relationship, which what I mentioned earlier was another big pivotal moment for me. And when I really started looking into behavior, like human behavior and love languages and all of this, and then started reading. Like I read so much. And then I remember reading, it was, the book The Secret.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and that was another big point for me. As I started reading that, I was really getting aware of like how things were happening and just like, ooh, I remember this magic, And it's that reminder that's always been there.
Of course.
And it's always in there. And it just sometimes takes something not always pleasant, let's say, to happen to kind of bring you back into your center, back into that space that that you have all this power and energy and magic. So I think, and I see everything as a blessing, because that wouldn't have got me to there and there and there and there. And
yes, exactly.
So, I just think that is the beauty of it all, and I get it. It's hard to just surrender and just trust when the mind wants to come in and the ego wants to take control and wants to know what's happening.
Exactly.
And ultimately, we don't. Even if the plan is cut and made out for us, perfectly paved, we can't see it, we don't know it, but we can trust it and be guided.
Right, by the universe, by the signs, by everything, by our intuition.
Completely. And that was really key on that travel trip, was my intuition. And that's kind of where I probably since that trip really kind of went back into societal life and was trying to be this person I wasn't, and that was tiring.
Of course.
Wearing the mask, like just trying to like, who am I? What am I doing? Like, why doesn't this feel right? Like, why am I not getting anywhere? Like,
of course, yes.
And so, and then it was like, it's because I need to come in here. I was looking out there for so much, and it's all in here, and it was just like, I eventually kind of went to see a therapist, and started like my healing journey, and kind of went from there really. And that was probably, I don't know how old I was, maybe 26 or something, around 26, 27, around my Saturn return. It was big for me. And and then since then, I've worked with coaches and therapists and healers and done so much. And it's magical work, it's special work, and it takes a lot of strength and courage also to go to those spaces,
Wow, yes.
But, we're not alone, where there's so much support out there. And, I think the healing is such a, like the process for me, like the process is what I love. It's not about getting to a place, it's just being in that process.
Of course.
I
think we're always in that process, right?
Yeah.
Some way or another.
Yeah. And so, there's so many stories I could share. I'd love to share them all, and I hope to. That's my plan, is to storytell, to share, to, you know, and write. And I really plan on writing a book one day.
Please do. We would love to read it, I'm sure.
Yeah, because every day is such an adventure.
Wow,
you know,
yes.
like so much happens. I'm like, I just need a camera person around my day-to-day life. you know, just like record everything that happens, because it's just every day is just so much happens. So that's a little part of my what started it, I guess.
Exactly what started it all. I love it. And something I actually want to circle back that you were saying, I think it's very important, is going back to inside. Because I think we've all done it, that maybe we fill ourselves with activities or even physical things. Shopping, eating, drinking, or something, because we think we need all these external things that'll make us more productive or better or feel better or whatever. And it kind of seems as if it all boils down to just going back to self and seeing what's happening there, right?
And yeah, as I was saying before, like about that feeling, it's like, okay, so what does, for example, shopping, okay, so it's looking at the attachment underneath shopping. What does that feeling bring you?
Okay.
So, for example, what does shopping bring you? What's that feeling, if you were to say?
Makes me feel, let's say maybe that I have more things, like abundance.
Okay.
For example.
And what does abundance feel like? If you were to describe how that would feel to you, what does that feel like in your body, for example?
In my body, it feels like being a little bit like unlimited.
Okay.
Like having so much of anything, can be energy or things, but maybe not empty.
Okay, not empty. Okay, so then, so where is this emptiness feeling? Like, where do you feel that?
I feel it here right now.
Okay. Okay, and what does that feel like? Could you describe it? Like the sensation?
It's quite scary.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, I guess feeling empty scares me.
Okay.
A feeling maybe alone?
Alone. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting right now.
And what is it about that feeling of being alone that scares you?
I guess maybe what I'm getting is like losing myself.
Okay.
As if I would stop being me if I'm alone.
Okay.
That's what I'm feeling. I'm just saying things as I'm getting them, like intuitively.
Yeah. So you feel, can you repeat that again, just so I
yes,
hear what
as
you
if
said?
I would lose myself. I maybe stop being me. Like stop existing.
If you were alone, if you were experiencing those feelings of alone.
So being alone completely, like it comes a lot like being in the void, for example.
Okay. So then I would kind of work with, you know, has there been a time where you've experienced this alone feeling before?
Okay. Yeah.
And looking within that, and then it's like, because we can quite easily attach a feeling to something, whether it's a person, a place, a thing.
Yes.
And so sometimes like filling a void, we can buy things to fill that feeling so we don't feel that feeling.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas if we work with energy, we know emotions are energy in motion. So it's kind of working with that alone, and then it's like, okay, so can we get to where you first had that feeling or that experience of that alone? And then it's also, you know, when you go into the depths, you can be like, well, this may not even be your fear. Like, this could have come from ancestral, past life, you know, your mother, her mother. But it's really kind of working with that feeling, and why from that, buying clothes is going to fill that feeling of being alone.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely does.
So it's working with that. Like I say, it's like, to me, it's like a puzzle.
I love it. Yeah.
You know, and I always say that, like, I love the puzzle of it. It's like the pieces, you know, like extracting and like
Yes, and
so
just
it's like
tracing it back.
Yeah, and so understanding why not necessarily why, but like, where has this come from?
Okay.
You know, where has this feeling come from? And then how can we work on that feeling here rather than trying to get stuff out here? Because that's not going to change there.
No, exactly. It's not going to make it go away or heal or. And what happens when we find that what's going on there?
So,
what do we do then? Is just by bringing awareness to it enough for it to heal, or?
Yeah, and then I mean, a lot of the work I do is working with inner child work. So
wow, yes,
it's really powerful, and it's kind of looking at, you know, was there a time when you felt alone as a maybe a child, or where has this fear been created from? You know?
Yes.
And then working at and looking at that, and then it's like, okay, so you can pinpoint. So you could say, okay, when I was 5, my mum left me in the supermarket.
Yes.
And I had this, oh my God, I'm alone. Oh, I just touched the microphone.
It's okay. Yeah, you can start with the part of my mom left me at.
Yeah. So, yeah, you could be like, when I was 5, my mum, she didn't leave me, but she went around the corner in the supermarket, and I was like, I'm alone, I feel alone, like, you know? And so to help with that feeling, maybe you then start to experience that feeling again in a situation or whatever brings that.
Okay.
And so rather than feeling it and being in it and becoming the observer and kind of watching yourself in it, feeling it, moving through it, it's like, oh, I have that alone feeling. Oh, I'm going to go and buy some clothes. And just hope that moves it to the side, or like just shoves it down, or just forgets about it.
Okay. And what happens if it's too scary to go back to that emotion?
Yes.
Because do you have to live it again?
Well, this is where it comes with trauma work, right? So it's about the foundation, isn't it? So to begin with, you know, that's kind of going really quickly. Like, to begin with, it's just about creating safe space. Yeah. So ultimately, you know, the first most important thing is to feel safe in your body. So we wouldn't just jump to that necessarily. It depends on if we've worked together already, but the idea is it's, you know, working really from the foundation of like safety first. So you need to be able to feel, 1, safe with me, 2, safe with yourself, so we can even begin to build a connection, a safe place to work together.
Definitely,
you know?
yes.
And then it's working with that, and then looking at so many factors around that, and then kind of, and you know, it kind of over time, you kind of go to those areas. But yeah, the most important thing, because as you said, it's like, we went there and it's like, what if you don't feel safe? And again, it's okay. So we start with safety, because that is the foundation for it.
Okay.
And then we work with feeling safe. So once you feel safe, it's a bit like the Maslow's hierarchy. You know, it's like safety. So, you know, roof over your head, like shelter, food, water.
Exactly,
you know, these are like basics, right? And so to be able to feel that in your home, you have to be able to feel that to then get to the next step, to then get to the next step, to the next, you know?
Yes.
And so it's kind of working with, I don't know if I want to say levels, but just steps. Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's where the journey comes in.
Exactly. It's good. It's good that you do this work with people that have gone through trauma, right? Of any level, I imagine.
Yeah.
And in a way, you accompany them and just help them blossom. But I guess also the person needs to also want to go on this journey and be open to it, for it to be as, what's the word, fruitful, or maybe...
Yeah, I think, and just embracing both the light and the dark and the shadow work, and, you know, we have to go to both spaces, you know, and kind of go between and work through this stuff, because it's not all light. ultimately, you know? And yeah, working through the shadow helps us continue to go to the light.
Okay. Katie, I know a lot of your work also centers around women's health. For example, working with the period and the cycles. Please tell us more. Please.
Well, yeah, I feel like...
Because wait, I have to say, because something that I love, that I had never heard before, that I heard you say it, and it's made me think so much is, you said, I love having my period.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I love how it feels. And I swear, this has started to change my paradigm of how I've seen always a period and how society has made me see the period and just be always like, oh no, but I thought it was lovely. So please expand on this.
Happily.
Help us change this mindset that we have of...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think this needs to be in schools more, to be honest, you know? Well, obviously, as I said, I had my period, and for me, you know, I was living with my dad and my brother. I didn't have a clue, you know. There was nothing, even if there was, I wasn't really wanting to know about it at that time, because it was like, ew, period.
Yes.
But it was almost this, there was a big part of me that wanted to start my period. You know, I had this like, I really want to start my period. And then as soon as I had it, and yeah, because of society, and it was just like, oh, period. And I just didn't really feel like there was, no one really spoke about it. It wasn't really a thing. And it was just like, oh, I've got my period, like you said, like this, like, oh. And then I guess, yeah, as I was on a part of my journey, I was really starting to... I came off because I was on contraceptive pill for quite a while as well, and was really aware of just how that was affecting me, my hormones and all the rest of it. And so I naturally just felt that needs to stop. And then I really started to track my cycle.
Okay.
And just started to like pay attention to, you know, come into awareness of it really, and just see like how often it was. And then as I was really connecting with the moon, I was really recognizing how obviously my bleed was then working with the moons and shifting with the moons. And this is so powerful for women, you know. In America, they have red tents. I don't know if you know of this.
No.
Yeah, so for women, when they're bleeding around their moon, they have these tents for women, which are red tents. And it's where women go and they sing and they chant, and it's where, you know, really, like, it's where the witches would make their potions and come together and share and yeah, make their magic.
So magical.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I just started really getting into it all, quite honestly. And I ended up doing a course, an online course on, it's called Womb and Wellness.
Ooh, okay.
So it was all about the immersion of women and their cycle and periods, and really educational. So I just learned so much, and it was a beautiful space because I myself have been through a lot of trauma in that area. So for me, I have experienced a lot of sexual trauma in my life, and so that's also been a really big theme throughout my life, and also like a really space that I've had to work through because I don't know, when I was younger I always had a lot of sexual energy but was really not using it in a healthy way. And so as I started to go on this path with working with the womb and stuff, and I had to work through a lot of trauma, first of all, which was really tough, actually. And I really hadn't, again, acknowledged myself, kind of what I'd been through. And some stuff had come through that happened as a child that I had completely blocked. And so, you know, when you hear these people, you know, in their 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and they're like, oh, this happened to me as a child. And they're like, well, why didn't you say anything when you were a kid? And now I understand that because I had blocked something that happened to me as a child that only came to me through a meditation. When I was doing a lot of this, I was working with a shamanic trauma healer. And started to talk about my stuff that's happened, and it suddenly came through, and clear as day, I remember everything now. But obviously, as a child, I'd blocked it.
Exactly, you just blocked it.
Yeah.
It was too much.
Yeah.
And wow.
And, you know, with trauma, this whole, like, also coming out of our body experience, that can also be because it's too painful to experience, or we can't. And so blocking, so a lot of this path has had to be, like, remembering stuff, you know?
Yes.
But to be able to do it in a space where you're not re-traumatizing yourself.
Exactly, because that's not the idea, right? Because,
Yeah.
well, it can be very damaging.
Yeah, exactly. So I really started to work with myself and my sexuality, my sexual energy, my womb, and had to do a lot of work with myself. And that was hard, you know, because a lot of the stuff you do is, or for me, like, has been on my own. Like, a lot of self-integration and embodiment, a lot of it is done on my own. No one there watching or supporting, you know, like, but then at the same time, there has been people there as well. So that then just became a really big part of my experience and journey, and really working with the womb and how it's such a sacred space, you know? And like, we how we talk to ourselves about it, you know, like with the periods and all of this, and it was just like, this needs to just do a whole 180 right now, you know? And really just started, because I was disconnected from that space, you know. I knew that I had this energy, but I didn't know how to use it or in a healthy way. And so I really had to reconnect to my body, and that in itself was difficult. And I feel a lot of women are disconnected, you know, from our bodies, from, you know, just even like touching ourselves, and just like, I feel there's a real big disconnect there. And so a big part of what I do is getting women to like reconnect to their bodies, you know. And then with that path, as it's gone along, it's kind of gone through that kind of real sort of really challenging period, and kind of coming out the other end of now working with that energy in a really healing way, and a really beautiful way. And you know, that's our life force, that's our power, you know, and it's amazing. And again, learning how to use it in a healthy way. And so then it kind of took me on, I had some like sacred sexual healing ceremonies and sessions I've worked through, and been really supported in some journeys there. And just with the connections with people that I've met, I can see, you know, how it's changing. And I've got hair in my mouth. Can I just?
Yes, of course.
Somewhere, something.
It's like you can just take it out and keep where you were. You got it?
Gum. Have I put lipstick on my face?
No.
Okay.
It's fine.
What was I saying?
The sacred sexual healing with all these people.
Oh,
healing.
yeah. And hang on, I've got to think now. It's when you come out of the flow.
Yes, I know.
Sacred sexual healing. I was talking about the session in London. Oh, yeah. And so that's kind of what then took me on, you know, looking at the tantric path, and I'd done a course in tantric sexuality course, learning about all of this energy and how to transmute it. Again, because with that energy, again, it's in the root, but we can transmute it all the way up, you know?
Okay.
And working with that energy to flow. And so, yeah, it's a really beautiful space now. And, you know, with dance and things like that, just there's so many ways we can work, I think, with that energy. And I think really helping women to be connected to our sexuality and connect to our bodies and love them so much, you know? And with the periods, like for me, I work with that in the cycle, you know, spring, summer, autumn, winter. And so I will block out in my diary when I have a period, and I will rest. Like, I won't do much at all.
Okay.
And because I'm really quite aligned with my period most of the time, I know when it's going to be, and I can just solidly rest, because there's so much in that space of when we're in our summer to when we're in our winter. So you think in our ovulation, you know, that's, if you think of summer in nature, that's the peak, right? You're full of energy, you've got longer days, like the same in our summer period of our cycle. You think about winter, it's time to hibernate, it's time to slow, it's time to rest, the days get shorter. It's the same with our period cycle. So it's kind of, again, like just aligning with it, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, you know? I think we can make these things really simple. And just, for me, I can feel when it's coming, and I know that there's stuff that maybe that I need to release before, and I might do like a yoni steam or something, like a sacred little ceremony for myself. I can feel it just before it happens, and I mean, it's not always easy to do, obviously, you know, because we're not always just in the same place being able to do that. But I feel if you can work with it, it's really special, and it's a lovely way to connect with yourself.
Definitely, because something that is just coming to me right now, but I feel that, and I've never really seen it this way, but speaking with you, you just inspire me to connect more with my intuition. A period is a moment, definitely of transformation.
Completely.
Right? You're ending, of course, a cycle, you're starting a new one. So energy-wise and rebirth.
Every time.
So
we get to do it every 28 days pretty much. Of
course, now I'm realizing this as I speak with you about this death and rebirth, and it's just a cycle ends and now a cycle is going to begin. And it's having the opportunity to say, well, now I'm born again.
Yeah.
Right?
And the beauty that we get to go through that, you know, and just embrace. And I think the acceptance, you know, embracing and accepting where we're at now, and just loving ourselves in that space, you know, whatever that may be or look like or feel like, and just
definitely
honoring us.
Yeah. And so let's see, something I also want to circle back to that you were talking about, the work that you do with women. I'm guessing, but you'll confirm that you've worked with women who've also gone through sexual abuse, for example. And how has that been? How have you helped them heal that wound that is
like
painful?
I feel like with any kind of healing work, as I may have already said, you know, it's really about finding that safe space, because that's key to all of this work, is to feel safe. Because if we don't feel safe, we're going to be too scared to go anywhere, to be able to even feel, share, you know. So again, it's bringing it to that safe space. So building the foundation, laying the foundation, building that home, feeling safe in the body, knowing what that feels like before we even begin to dive into those deeper layers as such. So there's a lot of different ways that we can work with it, but I feel a big part of, like I said, my own journey has been storytelling and sharing, but being able to do that without, like I said, kind of going too far, and then also re-traumatizing ourselves with this. So I think it's a big space that maybe isn't still that spoken about. And I feel just a lot of women have been through it, men too, you know, and I think it's an area where there's, you know, still a lot of, I don't want to say taboo, but, you know, that kind of about sex and about how that is. And, you know, growing up, you're brought around sex and pornography and this sort of energy towards it, you know?
Seen as bad and as...
and I feel it's, you know, again, learning to work with our boundaries, our body, knowing what feels right, and, you know, because if we don't know, how do we know? You know, so learning to respond with our bodies in a health and safety and conscious way. And a lot of that does come with boundaries, and that's also something that hasn't been regulated for a lot of people throughout childhood.
Of course.
It's really learning about what we've been taught.
Yes.
That maybe isn't necessarily healthy for us.
Yes.
Because, for example, someone growing up, if they've grown up learning that love is bad and love is evil and love is this, then that's all they know about love, if that's what they've been told. But yet somewhere underneath that there is love still.
Exactly.
And so it's just kind of deconditioning, taking off the layers of other people's stories, other people's ways, other people's beliefs of
course,
how they
don't belong to you, and
how they think you should live or be, and they're only coming from their space and what they know, and it's having compassion for that, and understanding that people are only doing as much as they can with the tools that they have at that point, and actually honouring that and that space and having compassion for them.
Yes.
Because that's all we're ever doing, is doing what we know at the time with what we have.
Exactly.
But now we're coming into this incredible space and opportunity, I feel, to have so many tools, and provide so much help, that we can start to really kind of hone in on ourselves and our journeys and learn through ourselves.
Most definitely. Because the truth is within us, so
completely. Yeah.
we just have to look within to find it.
Yeah.
And what we were speaking about before, about, going through trauma and maybe revisiting it, becoming aware that it's there and it's still present, and maybe we need to heal. How do we not fall again into the trauma, like that be traumatizing?
Yeah.
How do we not cross that border that it hurt us, but that we obviously need to see it to heal it?
Yeah. So from my space, that comes from being really, first of all, aware. There's so many different aspects that you can look within the physical body language. Are they breathing? How are they energetically? What's going on with them when they start to? And it's being able to also step in when it may be going too far one way, or so it's being able to be really conscious and aware when journeying through these spaces. I think that's really, really key, and really important. And I feel a lot of it comes with working with the person that feels aligned to you, and that's why with a lot of my work, like I say, and I birth people, like I won't necessarily always take them on that part of their journey. I'm not always going to be going all the way with them. And the idea is that I can direct them to someone else that I know and trust and, fully have faith in, that goes down that way or goes down that way or that way and that way. So it's like they can come to me initially and start working with me, and then if it's an area where it's not my forte or my real, I guess, aligned with me and what I'm doing, then I will steer them to another doorway that is more aligned on where they're going.
Okay.
And I think that's really important too, because they're also, when doing this kind of work, there has to also be awareness over the attachment of that, like working with someone when there's attachment, maybe they're dealing with attachment things already, there can then come the attachment to then someone else holding their hand and supporting them, and that can also then get in the way of their journey and healing.
Of course.
So it's having the awareness of when, we need to start, just separating a little bit, and you start going your own way too, because ultimately the idea is that I provide tools, and then you have these tools to work with yourself.
Okay.
Because otherwise someone's still leading and you're not the main character in your story.
Exactly. And you show us how to be the main character of our story and to forge our path ultimately.
Yeah.
You can have people help you, but we are the ones.
Yeah.
Each one is going to.
Exactly. Just how we meet people in our everyday life, how we've met, you know, like just how these things happen. We don't know how long we'll connect for, how long, but we're here right now and we're doing this.
And it's perfect and...
Exactly. And and sometimes like a book, you know, like with the story, sometimes someone's in one chapter, sometimes they're in 5, 6, sometimes they're throughout your whole story, but they might disappear for 5 or 6 chapters and then they may come back in for a little bit or at the end somewhere or, you know, and it's that just like ebb and flow and again, just, kind of just in that energy of flowing.
Yes.
But also having, kind of some boundaries within the flow and, you know?
Most definitely. And honoring yourself and what you want in life and your path. And
just coming to that because, the path, you know, we go here, but eventually we still end up here, you know? Like we may drift a little bit but that's how we learn, right? So I think it's also, just being so kind to yourself, you know? And just a bit lighter on ourselves and... to like make it fun. Like I have a great time with myself. You know, like sometimes when I'm going through something, because I'm kind of been able to kind of create this like observer, but whilst being in and feeling, it's sometimes I'm just like, okay, like you know, because like to have a bit of fun with it too, you know, to it not to be so serious all the time and just to be like, you've been here before, you know, you know this
approach. Not take things so seriously, right?
Yeah, and to have fun as well with it all. I know it's not always that way, but to just find, I think, joy in the little things as well, you know, like just having that relationship with yourself that can have fun and, you know, just be like, oh, you.
I love that. That's wonderful. So you mentioned more than once, and I love it, that you are a storyteller, you're a writer. And we share that because I'm also a writer and a storyteller. And you mentioned something earlier that I just wanted to circle back to that because the importance of healing through storytelling and through writing, because I feel that also from a very young age I've written mostly for myself, but now as an adult I've used writing as such an incredibly powerful healing tool that I tell everybody, you have to write. Even if it's just for yourself, journaling or something, but it's so therapeutic. It makes you realize so many things.
And it takes them from here to here.
Right.
Yeah.
So how has your experience been with that? And do you also encourage it in your coaching?
Yeah, it's one of the main things. I wouldn't want to start anyone's journey unless they had a journal. It's so important. And to look back on too, like I look back at some of my journals now and I'm like, you know, and it's really nice. And it tells your story. You're writing your story at the same time, you know? So it's really nice to be in that space. And for me, like, it's so natural to me. I don't really have to, like these things that we do, like brushing our teeth, like I just don't really have to think about it. It's like intuitively, I just know I need to write. And sometimes, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's just like, and then I look and I'm like, oh my God, it's been like 2-3 hours.
You just float with it.
Yeah, and I love that space. Like, I love being in that space. And I think sometimes a lot of people have mentioned that I don't know what to write, right? Like, what do I write? And I just say, you can just start with like, so I'm just going to write on this bit of paper and see what comes out. Like, how am I feeling today? And just let it flow and just see what comes, you know? Or just write, what have I been doing today? And then you start writing what you've been doing today. And then from that, it like follows. And eventually, you know, before you know it, you might have written a couple of pages.
Yes.
And you're just like, I didn't even know, like, I was feeling that way. Or I forgot I even did that today. Or, you know, and just, yeah, I find it a really beautiful practice to do. I carry my journal everywhere I go.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Because, you know, when I'm going on walks, when I'm in nature, so much comes to me. And I always am, sometimes I'm like, I don't have like something. So I do think this is where phones are great, because on the notes, or even just a voice memo.
Yes,
you
exactly.
know, I just think it needs to come out some way.
Exactly, somehow, some way.
So again, it's another form of expression, you know? It's another form of healing and, just self-expression and kind of awareness of actually how you're doing sometimes and just what's going on, and just a space to also, I feel, to sometimes respond to things before you respond. You know, like sometimes before you want to maybe respond to a message, or maybe something that has slightly triggered you, or you're feeling maybe quite a bit, to write it all out first, and then you can respond from a different space as well, not from like a reaction. You're coming more from like a response, you know, and because you've been able to like filter through it, let's say.
Exactly, and not just react to it.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It can help you process things, clarify, bring light to what was in the darkness.
Yeah.
It's such a great tool.
Yeah, it really is. And yeah, part of the course that I'm doing, I'm going to create a journal that's going to work alongside the course, and then hopefully also have a complete like journal to sell, like paper as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's going to be an incredible course.
I'm
and
so
I hope
excited.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So how can we find you, Katie?
Okay.
Social media, anything and everything.
Yeah. So yeah, my website is www.bespokejourney.co.uk. On Instagram, I'm at bespoke_journey. On Facebook, it's Your Bespoke Journey. There's so many channels now, right?
Yes, so many. You also have a YouTube channel?
Yeah, YouTube. I'm just trying to think what it is on there. I want to say it's just Bespoke Journey on there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but on my website, like, there's quite a lot of development going on with that right now as well. So that's going to be changing a little bit, and there'll be a lot on there too. But I'm really feeling the call to share more with my voice. And so I think and really feel that YouTube is the space for that for me.
Most definitely.
So, yeah. So watch this space.
Great.
Yeah, I feel just with the more in-depth spiritual work that I'm doing, it feels, a really nice space for it. So, and yeah, like retreats and storytelling, I want to bring this more and more and more.
To more people, yes,
Yeah.
as many people as possible.
Completely.
Your work is, I think, fundamental,
Oh, thank you.
beautiful, and I hope it reaches as many people as possible.
Thank you.
So-
that's my intention.
Yes.
Inspire, you know.
Of course.
I dream big, so
Good, you
yeah.
must. Let's all dream big
Yeah.
because it's possible.
Completely.
We can make it happen.
Completely.
And as we are here ending this lovely interview that I thank you for.
Thank you.
And with this beautiful sunset that we have right here,
So nice.
if you could give us a last little message, a little pearl to take with us. No pressure.
What comes to me? To be kind, because underneath us all is love.
It's love.
It really is.
It is, exactly. Be kind to ourselves, to everybody, to everything, right?
Yeah. To create more balance, peace and harmony, you know. Kindness is key.
I love that. Thank you, Katie. Thank you so, so much.